Hey y'all! Well, here for a review on the Aiyima A20. It's a new 10th anniversary unit they just came out with, or at least they just sent me one. And I'm really impressed that they listened to me and other reviewers about how these things are set up and designed. Now I'm going to back up a review from when I did a shootout with this A70 mono versus the Fozzy. I can't remember the number, sorry guys, but it's their little mono version of the same amp. And there really wasn't a whole lot of difference in the sounds of them. It was like the feature set. And I just didn't like the way this one came with these two big knobs, and this one has a low pass filter for the sub out. And I don't understand why you would put a low pass filter adjustment on the amplifier when every active or powered sub has its own low pass filter control and a volume control. It just doesn't make any sense that you would have it in both places. And I ended up choosing the Fozzy over the two. I actually think it did maybe sound just a breath better, but it was mainly that the boxes were bigger because they had these two big knobs, and I just didn't like the aesthetics of it. But mainly, I felt like it was just a redundant control. And I've seen a lot of these little chip amps over the last few years that have this adjustable low pass filter built into the amplifier when there's one already in the sub. Now it made sense with the, I think it was a B07 that actually was made for a passive sub, and of course a passive sub's not going to have any kind of low pass filter, so it made sense to build that into the amplifier because it had an extra amplifier channel for the sub. But these ones that like this that just have the RCA out to go to a powered sub, it makes no sense to have subwoofer controls on the amplifier. And I told the folks at Aiyima that and said this is why I chose the Fozzy unit over yours. The Fozzy unit was super simple, super clean. It didn't even have a volume control, just had an on-off switch, where if you're building a mono block, normally those are going to be powered by a preamp. And with having the volume control on a mono amp, then you got two volume controls you're dealing with, which I don't think anybody would do that. They would be driving them with some kind of a preamp. So just none of it made sense. And I explained that to them. So now we have this new A20. And the A20 has a high pass filter on the speaker jacks for the main speakers. And that makes so much sense because having an adjustable high pass filter, and you can bypass it if you're not using a sub. The switch here is off, on, and then high pass filter on. And then on the back, it's got a high pass filter that goes from 60 hertz to 200 hertz. And so if you've got some little small 3-inch driver desktop speakers that you're trying to use with this, it's probably not going to have anything below 100 hertz. And so you can turn this up to 100 hertz. None of those low frequencies go to the main speakers. And then on your subwoofer, it's got the low pass filter that you can then adjust it up to 100 hertz. Or you can cross them over a little past there because you're kind of doing this thing. And that way the subwoofer integrates with your main speakers, and you're not trying to force your main speakers to play low frequencies. And I just think that's so smart. And I'm not the only reviewer that was complaining about this. I also liked the way this has a more subtle look than this, with these gold. I mean, this was just, I know some people like kind of that bling look. I just didn't like it at all. This to me, with this centered volume control that's black with a little bit of red trim, and it's just yeah, it just looks really nice. The other switch over here is the RCA XLR. Another neat feature it's got, and this is on the back, it's got a bypass button that you can hold in, and you have to read the instructions. After you hold it in a second, I don't know if it beeps or anyway, it bypasses the volume control. And then you can drive this with a preamp that maybe has a remote control, or if you wanted to get, they make a matching unit to this. I think it's a T10 that has a remote control, and it's got a couple of tubes. And so that's kind of a neat feature. Or if you've got a DAC that you use, like my E70 has a actual analog volume control, not a digital one. And so if I wanted to use it, the XLR outs, the XLR ins, we're all good there. So I'm actually thinking about, I gave away my little small clip speakers that I was using downstairs, and they were some real budget ones. I was wanting to upgrade. And so I bought a pair of those Quad S1s, the small version of the S2s that are in my main system, for my downstairs kind of workshop system. And turns out they're not quite efficient enough for my little 6BM8 to drive them. And so I've been playing around with some different speakers that I've got. I've tried some more efficient ones that I'll end up doing a review about these Deckware speakers. I'm just struggling to like them, which is a shame. I really thought they'd work out better, but anyway, that's for another video. So I want to use these little Quad S1s. My 6BM8 won't drive it, and so, I mean, it'll drive it to like sort of reasonable volume, but if a good song comes on, I want to crank it up, it's not there. It gets distorted. So I'm thinking about using this little chip amp, and I've got a powered sub that I've been using with that setup, and I'm thinking those little Quad S1s with this amp, and then use my powered sub and play with the high pass filter and then the low pass in my sub, find a little happy spot there. I think I might be onto something. And this also has replaceable op amps, and it's got 2 sockets, which is nice. Some of these have like, some of the sockets I'm not even sure what they do. And, you know, people are guessing kind of that, oh, that does the XLR balance thing or whatever. And this one is very clear. There's 2 sockets that you can replace. So you're not buying like a slew of op amps. Not sure which ones really matter. 2. So I've got some Burson V7 Vivids that we did a shootout. I like the Sparkos better, but I don't have any more Sparkos here. Somehow I ended up with 1. So I may hit up Andrew and get another op amp from him. But for now, I'm going to put the Burson in here. And the Bursons were too tall to fit in the A70, which was another one that I really liked. It was simple. It was kind of it was a little different form factor than this. And I actually like this form factor better. And I ended up selling the A70 to a customer that was interested in a tube amp. Didn't really have the budget to swing nice speakers and the source and a nice tube amp or, you know, $2,000 amplifier. And so I hooked him up with the A70 with some Sparkos op amps in it, and perfect for him. He's not really doing super, what I call ultra hi-fi when you're just critically listening. It was more kind of a background music system anyway, and so it fit him great. And that's what this is going to be for me. This isn't going to be my main system. And I know some people want to call these like giant killers, and you know, this is going to sound as good as a $5,000 2A3 or 300B tube amp, and yeah, it's not that. But for the money, it is a killer deal. And for a low budget system, when you need some power, I think it's a great option. So it comes with a 48 volt 5 amp brick. It's nice that there's enough room inside for those taller Burson op amps to fit in here, and while they weren't quite up to the detailedness that the Sparkos op amps had, probably from my use down here, listening to just some streaming lo-fi YouTube stuff, it's going to work perfect. And it's not going to have to worry about, oh, it's tubes, I've forgotten left them on, because I've done that before. And probably that little 6BM8 amp might find a good home with one of my viewers, because I'm kind of running out of things to use it for. So we may put that on one of our skunky yard sales soon. So to open this up was really simple. I did learn my lesson about slide off the volume control, take off the nut behind there. There's 4 screws in the corners. Use a real small little Allen key, and then there's a couple of screws right here that hold the module heatsink to the case so that it is, solidly attached. And I will say that I had a little struggle with trying to get the screws out. These ones in the back weren't too bad, but these 2 right here, for good reason, were super tight. And I don't have probably super high quality Allen wrenches, and one of these screws stripped out. And so the little flathead Allen screws they use, the Allen socket part of it is real shallow, and the Allen key doesn't get a very good bite in there. So make sure you got a really good Allen key. I ended up having to drill the screw head off of it, and then once I got it apart, I got my little Dremel tool, made a little slot in it, and was able to get the screw out. No harm, no foul. I didn't want to try to slot the screw while it was tight. I'm not sure I would have still been able to get it out, and I didn't want to potentially mark up the case. When I put it back together, I used some, I think they're 3mm little button head screws that have a lot deeper Allen thing in it. And with the little feet, it still easily clears this. So maybe in the future, instead of doing a 45-degree bevel countersink, just do a little kind of shouldered countersink and put either regular Allen bolts or some these little button head things that give more purchase for the Allen key, or maybe include an Allen key with it. If you're showing people that, hey, these have replaceable op amps, make it a little easier to get in them. But hey, maybe just bad luck. But be aware of that. If you're gonna try to loosen those up, they're crazy tight, which they should be, and real easy to strip out. So make sure you got a nice fresh Allen key when you go to attack those 2 screws. Otherwise, putting op amps in it was super simple. And like I said, there's plenty of room in there to put the taller Bursons in there, or plenty of room around the socket. There's nothing like encroaching on the socket where a Sparkos wouldn't go in there either. So overall, a really cool piece. It's also got the 12-volt trigger for the external devices like a preamp or something, so you can have one switch turns everything on, which is kind of cool. And what else is on the back of this thing? It's got, of course, the sub out. Again, it's got the adjustment for the high pass filter. It's got a RCA switch with a plus 3 dB boost, which is nice in case you got a source that's a little on the weak side. And then again, it's got XLR and RCAs. I do feel like these, they're not digital. I know they call them Class D amp, and people think they're digital. That's not what's going on. But these types of amps that use op amps and those amplifier modules, their native way of operating is with balance signals. And so if you're going to use these guys, it really is a good idea to get a preamp or a DAC that has balanced out and use the balanced cables, and then you're not switching back and forth between balanced and single-ended and back and balanced and all that. It's whenever you do those conversions, it degrades the signal. And that's why I tell people tube amps are natively single-ended, so don't try to use XLR with them because you're having to split up and recombine the signal and then, connect it, combine it again using transformers and stuff. And you're better off just keeping the signal either single-ended or balanced. So, just a little tip on that. In the future, I may be working on a balanced tube amp. Right now, I'm sticking with single-ended for my tube stuff, even if it's a push-pull. Anyway, that's kind of it for this little amplifier. And here's a picture of the inside of it. As you can see, it's really simple. Got the two sockets there. There's a Burson in one, and then there's a standard one that's in it that's oh my God, I'm going to put the number up here. I can't remember what it is. There's other op amps, the little IC chip ones that you can put in and try and see what they sound like too if you want to, which is kind of fun to roll those and play around with getting the sound you want. So, again, I think they really hit a great point and a great feature set on this little amp. Way better than what they did here. Again, this was one that I've just, not a fan of. This, on the other hand, this one's going to be going into my downstairs system. And I've already listened to this thing. It does sound really nice. It's got the same sound that these newer versions do that have that extra feedback loop and everything. It's got that nice, clean sound, especially after putting these Burson Vivid V7s in it. It really sounded good with those. And I think I'm just going to, rather than spend a bunch of money rolling other op amps as semi kind of secondary system, I think I'm just going to run with this and get it dialed in with my subwoofer. And it's going to be a cool little system. So if you're looking for something like this, I think they did a great job. And they finally hit that high pass filter feature set that we've been asking for. So good on you, Aiyima. Anyway, that's going to wrap up this video. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. Thanks to Aiyima for helping. They're not financially supporting the channel, but they send me stuff like this to review, which is really helpful. And as you've seen in the past, I'm just going to tell it like it is. And I've had products like this sent to me that I wasn't a fan of, and I've said it. And so when I'm saying this is nice, this is a nice little amp. So if you need something like this, give it a shot. Anyway, thanks for watching. And until the next video, have a nice day.